All right. So why don't we start? Quick introductions, and we'll get into the agenda. Mike.
All right. Hey, everybody. Mike Fisher. I lead investment innovation for Group M, where my team is focused on the convergence of how do we better use technology to accomplish our goals for our clients. That includes planning technology, buying technology, and measurement technology. And really, what are we doing to start to embrace the broader ecosystem in a way that helps us spend our clients' money better?
I'll be faster. Sujin Oh, Chief Strategy Officer at FreeWill.
I mean, you have a title that people understand.
Yeah. And it's
Sam Armando with Publicis Media. I head up a group called Marketplace Intelligence. I called it that for obvious reasons. I wanted people to think I was intelligent. But bottom line is understanding audiences, marketplace conditions, marketplace assessment on behalf of our investment teams so they can make some knowledge-based investment decisions.
Bob Ivins. I always hate this section. I never know what to say, but I'm with Telly. I don't know. Has anybody heard about Telly? Yes. Has anybody seen Telly? Does anybody have a Telly?
On the list.
You're on the list. There's one next. Can't get out of here tonight. You can take it home. So I work for Telly, and I'm responsible for all of our data divisions.
okay. So let's start. So Sujin, you spend a lot of time studying the consumer. Through this conference, there's been a lot of talk about consumer consumption habits changing over time. What do you see in the data you study that maybe the industry is not thinking about and connected then back to advertising measurement or advertising activation strategy?
So we are releasing our VMR report today. And so just to throw some stats. So the good news is that ad viewership is growing up. We have about 8% growth in the US, 15% in Europe. Another good news is that we are also applying audiences. So 80% growth in terms of applied audiences. And that's a great thing because it's relevant ads to the viewers. And I think one of the things that we also are looking at is, tied to viewership, there's a lot of challenges ahead, right? So I'm a realist and I don't want to start the catalog off with such a, grim note, but I think it's important for us to be very eyes wide open because we are going through a sea of change. And one of that is, we've all as an industry benefited from the growth of streaming, but that also means that viewers are inundated with choices and across screens and platforms, and that adds complexity to measurement, which is what we're talking about. So that is one. I also think, viewers going into walled gardens and watching more of that limits signal. So there's a problem to be had here because now we have big gaps of data that also then complicates the measurement side. And then to further the kind of dark notes here, we have big tech companies also removing identifiers. Another key thing to watch out for is end of next year, third-party deprecation of cookies. That's been the predominant way for our industry to measure for decades now. So along with privacy and legislation. So I really think, in terms of viewer experience, but the theme of measurement, it is a time where we really have to kind of be eyes wide open and look at these challenges and really change behaviors as an industry.
Got it. Thank you. Mike and Sam, from an agency planning investment perspective, what are the major issues around ad measurement that you guys are each dealing with? Sam, why don't you start?
Sure. I think it lends itself to currency more than measurement, right? So I think we started as an industry focused on the measurement, understandably so. And now we're starting to appropriately shift that focus to the currency, meaning how do we get from planning to investment to pacing or stewarding a buy to posting the buy. A lot of systems are involved, client system, proprietary system, agency systems, or industry systems in order to do all this. So I think those, I think you said issues. I don't want to make it sound like it's a dire situation, but those are the things that I think will rise to the forefront now that we're understanding methodology a little bit better of all the different players. Now it's time to find out how to best ingest it into all of the systems that we use, or find out how it cannot be so we can adjust if need be.
Right. I mean, I think it's growing pains, right? I think back to, I think it was in Puerto Rico at the Beat Retreat earlier this year where we were, on stage and somebody asked, a question, and I was with Travis on stage, and Travis and I were both talking about how we need to do a better job of celebrating the wins we've had. We've done a great job over the last 3 years of navigating a very complex measurement ecosystem that is ripe for change, and the move away from panel to either a combination of panel plus big data or big data only is the future and the direction that we should be going in. With that comes challenges that I don't know if any of us on the investment and ad buying side really realized was going to be as big of a problem. Like, to your point, if we move away from Nielsen C3 as the currency and a media seller stops using Nielsen C3 as the currency, how does that not only impact what we buy and how we reconcile it, but how audiences are surfaced in some of our planning tools and strategy and comm planning tools that still rely on Nielsen Media Impact as an example. So there are things that are impacting our ability to not just do our job through investing, but strategy, comms planning, buying, the big part of it. But then to your other point, measurement and interoperability. So many of our back-end billing systems, workflows, financial reconciliation tools still rely on that data feed that comes from the currency provider of record. And as we start to think about new things and new ways to transact, we also need to think about how do the systems that are not as evident to us as needing to rapidly evolve as fast as our buying systems have, how do we push those forward, and how do we incentivize those vendors to rapidly scale their tools?
So do you think, and you both talked about sort of planning, and Mike, you sort of did a great job, I think, of describing end-to-end what's needed. It feels to me that sometimes we get overly focused on linear TV measurement issues, right? And, the reality is, I don't think the industry has an issue with counting linear audiences, right? And
I do, but
well,
I don't think that's a problem. But that's a historical problem that we shouldn't worry about moving forward. We shouldn't be saying, let's take what worked in linear and apply it everywhere. And we shouldn't be saying, let's take what works in digital and apply it everywhere. We have a once, and Kelly Abkarian can say this a lot better than I can. We have a once in a generation opportunity to redefine how we transact on the TV screen. We can't just say, this used to work, so let's do it, or this used to work, so let's do it. Sure. Let's build something entirely new that takes into account the fact that it's still captive viewing audience, multiple people in a room on the big screen, but is countable and measurable and attributable like the best of digital.
But do you think, don't disagree, and I wasn't meaning to infer that the panel status quo is right. I guess my question is, do you think we have enough focus on what's required to succeed on the TV screen, knowing that it's more than just linear TV, lots of platforms? You sort of described, there are, any TV set has 5 different ways of being served addressable. Do you feel like the industry has a big enough focus as we think about where we are and where we're going? Any of you guys?
I think the focus is there, but does it reap it being a staple? Not yet. So I think we're still in the let's test mode, and that is what we should all be doing, because, even the measurement results are very varied, right? So not only do we have to figure out the operational side, but, even just getting comfortable with the results is a big thing. So to go back to the focus, I think this is going to be the focus for a few years, if I'm being a realist, but we are making steps in the right direction.
And it also takes the acknowledgement that things are changing and our ability to change with it.
Yeah.
To your point, we can't just say, this is the way we did it before, right? And I mean everything, not just process, but my clients' bases, right? I mean, those are going to change, or at least something. So if we don't, I always laugh at, I think everybody in this room probably thinks that current measurement, and this isn't a slam on everyone, is faulty, right? It's fallen behind. But yet when I put up something as a different number or a different process, a lot of the response I get is, whoa, that's different. right? Well, so which one is it, right? Are we acknowledging that it's wrong and we need to change, or are we comparing it to what we know is wrong and saying it's wrong?
Yeah. Okay. Want to bring Bob into the conversation. So Bob, maybe for the room, some of the people in the room may not really understand what Telly is, and maybe describe Telly, and also give us a sense of, is ad execution or ad measurement different in a Telly environment as a platform than traditional linear TV or AVOD, SVOD, or?
I'll try to answer that question in a roundabout way. I have a crazy idea. We're going to build a high-end television, costs about $1,000 to make. We're going to get people to opt into it. They're going to say, yes, I'm going to give you some demographics and you can collect all the data you want. I don't care, what ads I'm exposed to, you can get that data. I don't care what TV I watch, you can get that data. And we're going to give it to them for free. And that's what we're doing. We basically build 55-inch TV with a high-end sound bar stuck in the middle, gets very loud. Off the record, don't put a big speaker in between two pieces of glass. You're going to have some problems. And then underneath that, we have what acts like a tablet. And a consumer who wants this television, again, it's $1,000 device, says, hey, I'm going to opt into this, and you can have my demographics. You can have if you haven't seen one, there's one next door, by the way. You can have my demographics, and you can collect all the viewing data that I generate. I don't care whether it's on Netflix. I don't care whether it's on Apple TV. I don't care whether it's on linear TV. I don't care if it's time shifted. I don't care if it's a game. We're going to get that data. And we're going to get the ad exposure data too. So that's all sitting in one data set now. Right now, we have thousands of these in the wild. We have manufacturing capacity to do 25,000 a month. And so and by the way, that isn't in our main business. Our main business is advertising. We're going to sell advertising on that bottom screen. So we're going to have a boatload of data, and I think we're threading that needle. And there's going to be some hair on it, demographics, where everybody's going to say, what about people antenna? We've had so many people that want to be able to connect the antenna to the TV now, so I think we'll solve that. But we're going to have a massive data set that threads the needle between panel-based measurement and big data. And I think we're really excited about what we can offer the industry. We don't want to have a dog in the hunt and try to be a currency.
That's a good idea.
I don't think George Ivy's in the room, but I've had enough time with him in the years. But yeah, it's like we don't need to do that. So we're going to make this available to the industry, and I think that's where we're headed. Now, I don't remember what your question was, Howard. So
is ad measurement any different for a Telly campaign than a traditional?
Well, what excites me and what drew me to this opportunity was, there's a phrase that I've used a lot. Change happens very, very slowly until it doesn't. I think the industry is kind of down to the ad impression now. We're very solid about that, and I think being able to collect that at a household level, maybe even get it to personified. We don't view an impression whether it's on a CTV or a linear TV or even embedded in a game as any different.
Yep.
Yeah, you said a Telly impression, and my question was going to be, what's a Telly impression?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's video. It's big screen.
Yep. So one of the things we talked about on our prep call was this idea that we're still focused on exposure counting, whether that is average impression, exact impression, reach and frequency at the impression level. And the industry has been really slow to think about other attributes that may align with campaign outcomes, positive advertiser success, things like engagement. There's a lot of work being done by Dentsu on engagement. Why do you think the industry hasn't graduated to something that you'd want to include in a currency in addition to how many?
I don't think that one size fits all currency and measurement is the way that we should be approaching this. Sure. We talked a little bit about this on the prep call, that all currency is measurement, not all measurement is currency and deserves to be currency. There are things that are worth counting and worth reconciling on, and there are things that after you count and reconcile on are nice to have and important to have and critical to have from a measuring perspective. Personally, I believe that something like co-viewing is a important metric for measurement, but may not be the most important measurement for currency when we're talking about, did we deliver the ad to the right screen at the right time in the right home? So there are all sorts of nuances that I believe in the next, let's say 10 years down the line, if we get this thing right, we're developing custom currencies for every campaign. That's how you get closer to outcome-based buying. But like, we're not looking at 10 years down the line. We're looking at like a year and one or two upfront cycles away. And it's got to be better than what it is now. And it's got to be better than what it is in the past. And that starts with us agreeing, as the buyers and the sellers agreeing, what is the count going to be? Who do we trust to do and verify the count? And how are we going to pay against that? And that's all we should be thinking about from a currency perspective for the next few cycles.
I also just go back to like seeing a video ad on the big screen is a really still and will be a good branding mechanism, right? So I was just giving an example that like I have known more brands to have EV capabilities as a viewer in the recent times. And so branding works. And so what is the primary KPI? It's measuring exposure so you can know how many unique people we have. But going back again, because of the fragmentation, that is still a theme because there's still a gap there, right? But we also know that we don't need to see another green lizard to know Geico sells insurance. So Geico, as an advertiser, actually wants to measure engagements. And in order to do that, though, and weigh the value of that engagement across other media, they need a media mix model where there's gaps there too. So I think that's why we're kind of talking about both, because one begets issues on the other side.
Right. And the market mix modeling that Sujin's talking about, these are the last things to pick up change in viewership. So we still hear from clients, oh, our market mix modeling says linear TV is drastically more effective and efficient than streaming. Why? It's the same screen. It's the same content. It's more targetable. It's because these models have not caught up to consumer change and are not accurately looking at how do we count a success.
A couple thoughts. I think in order to graduate to where we hope to be, I think there needs to be some tie to the metrics that we've used in the past, right? We've all talked about reach. And I think that starts with how many people were exposed or how many people saw it. So starting there, I think is fine. I think we are having discussions on attention and attribution. The other thing is, man, I love this industry, but we move slow. And it's 2024. We don't have cross-screen, cross-platform measurement yet. And I think if we tie ourselves down with trying to, I think I heard the phrase yesterday, boil the ocean, which I like, and try and solve it all, we're going to be having this discussion at the next or the future SIM summits.
It's like mobile again.
Okay. Sam, one of the things you mentioned on the prep call, and look, we're talking about ad measurement, but you said the industry needs to keep remembering that content measurement is important too. Talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. And that's why I really appreciated the conversation that Lisa and Colleen, I think, had yesterday regarding it. So I'm going to pick up their baton from the providers and talk about, the agency or the investment. Part of my job, or a big part of my job, is assessing audiences, assessing networks, platforms, and assessing the marketplace, right? So if I am left with just a focus on campaign-based measurement, which we need on behalf of our clients, I'm going to fall short at building consideration sets for all of our teams, fall short of having our investment leads understand marketplace conditions. So I still need a form of measurement that gives me information on each provider, whether it's a linear network or streaming, on the programs that they offer, the types of audiences that they attract in order for us to make those, I said earlier, knowledge-based buying decisions.
The Screen Actors Guild needs measurement and content.
It's wild that was such a big part of.
Yeah, no, it was great to see that. It was almost like having Ross Perot talk about the economy and back in the day. But it's right. Measurement is important for ads and it's important for content.
So where, obviously a lot has changed in the last couple of years. We live in a much more vibrant multi-currency provider world than we were a couple of years ago. And obviously you guys would all like to be not talking about measurement, but doing your jobs and helping advertisers succeed, building out Telly as a platform. How do you, as you step back and sort of think about where we are, have we made enough progress? Are you worried that we're not making, we haven't made enough progress? Give a sense of where we are. Bob, why don't you start? I mean, you're an industry veteran. You've been around. You've watched these battles for a long time.
I don't know.
2 years old as I am.
So. Yeah, no, I think I think we made a lot of progress. I mean, you know my joke. I used to say it'll happen in my lifetime, but now I have to say this century. But I think that this is hard work. I'm thrilled to have the choice I have as a consumer to watch what I want, when I want, where I want, how I want. I mean, that's fantastic, but it's got to be a mess to think about trying to sell content. It's got to be a mess for an advertiser to try to reach an audience. And Mike just depressed me in his opening comments, like, Jesus, this is hard work. But it is really hard. But I do think we've made a lot of progress as an industry. There's still a lot of wood to chop, and we keep going.
But I also think, we're not addressing the problem inherently. So I think all of these things will continue to be a theme until we actually reimagine how we solve problems, right? So even the concept of like multi-currency and varied results, like, can we get buyers, sellers, and measurement companies in a co-op where they're sharing a panel, right? I think my colleague talked about this, where it helps calibrate the accuracy off of a common baseline. That will help all of us really get that level of comfort that then, allows us to adopt in skills. But it's a different way of kind of thinking about how to approach data. I think people have been very guarded, but with this shift towards privacy and consent-based, that's going to inherently limit the volume we already have. So, I think this concept of we're stronger together needs to be embraced because I do think that will help a lot of the fragmentation issues.
And I promised myself I wasn't going to go here because I was misquoted in the past, but here I go. Multi-currency industry, we need to all understand, and again, I come from an investment background, how do we conduct business in a multi-currency world, or what is multi-currency? So is multi-currency the choice that I have to select a provider, or the choice of a metric that I have and then negotiate with my partners to do that? Or is multi-currency using different currencies for the same metric, right? Because that's where it becomes really clouded and difficult.
Yeah, I mean, these are all the reasons. If you had asked me to go first in that, I would have said we've made a ton of progress, but we were also, the more progress we make, the closer we come to screwing it up. And I think you guys all backed up why that would be, because like we did the easy part and now it's the hard part, which is how do you make it real? How do you transact on it? How do you build a better model for a sustainable future? And if we get it right, we'll get it right. And if we get it wrong, we will get it very wrong. And it will, delay us by another decade. And I don't know if Bob wants that.
The multi-currency thing scares me a bit, to be honest. I mean, I remember traveling around Europe with a wallet that was that thick with, 10 different currencies, and it was a pain in the ass.
Yes.
So literally, yeah, that's what my head would still have the problems. But I'm still don't know whether that's where we're headed, to be honest. I get the opinion, but I really do think it's like we joked about this on the call. We kind of know if we knew what a gallon of gas costs, but we didn't know how to measure a gallon, we would have a problem. And I feel that's when we talk about multi-currencies, we're talking about, hey, I know a gallon is about this big, but I don't exactly know what it's holding.
Well, and that's where some of my concern thinking about this as someone as older, or if not older than you, an industry elder, is, I don't know if everybody saw Brian Weezer's presentation yesterday. His perspective that less reach from the TV screen is our future is not right? I mean, you guys know how to accumulate reach. It's just harder than it used to be. And sometimes I worry that we're not solving that problem, where I think that problem is more paramount than how do we count the linear impression. A couple of more things in, because I want to, respect, we have to get people back by 4:00. So 2024, the world migrates from average commercial minute rating.
That's in 2 months, dude.
Next year. They said September, right? The world migrates to measuring exact commercials on television. Are we ready for that? Is that a good thing? How does the market react to this? Mike, you and Sam start maybe.
I think it's a good thing, because I think more accurately measuring where my brands, my clients are showing their message to as a way to derive their success metrics remains to be critical. I think that I don't think we're going to be there to the extent that we all would want to be there. But again, like I am the optimist. And I do believe that the steps we have taken are laying the right groundwork to give our clients the better results that they're looking for. And, you know, 2 years ago, when Adam Gerber and I did our first iteration of Future Video, the thing we were saying, you know, Adam would do his typical Adam Gerber thing and say, the slide would come up and it'll say, and this is what we said to clients, your impressions will cost more. And our clients would go, oh, well, I don't want that. And then you click and even bigger letters, it would say, but you're buying far fewer of them. And that's what we're ultimately building towards, which is how do we deliver fewer impressions that are more impactful, that may look like they cost more on a per impression basis, but that we can definitively say this was aligned with what you, my client, was looking for.
So movement to campaign-based ratings. Yeah, I think it's definitely a good thing. From the time that I started, it was all about how many people saw my ad, right? We dealt with program average and wondered, are people seeing it? Then we dealt with a commercial average and wonder if people seeing it. So this is a step closer to actual exposure. I also think it will help us with a lot of the things that we've talked about. Pod placement, contextual ads, all that type of stuff might, come to the forefront as far as having a little bit better data to deliver it. Are we going to get there? I'll go back to the planning process. Will my planning teams be able to plan on that data and then deliver buy specs to us based on that? So historical data becomes really critical, in my opinion, in order for them to accurately do that.
Well, and doesn't that also get to a little bit of the discussion around currency versus measurement? Because I'm sure Joe does not want to have to go and build a rate card by break within show, by pod position within show, and guarantee that, Joe from Scripps. So does some of that be, it's great to measure, but you can, you're not going to expect publishers to actually build rate cards with that level of granularity, because it may be impossible to predict how the third spot in the second break of Married with Children.
Right, and when we're in the upfront, I don't think we're going to know that we're going to be in the spot with the second break. So again, it lends itself more to content analysis as well.
I mean, like 50%, more than 50% is like live content. So how do you predict that?
Yeah, exactly. And the impact of the creative, because the creative. All right, so last question. Aside from everything we talked about in the last 27 minutes, what else should we be thinking about for 2024, being that it's going to be here in 2 months? Bob, why don't you start?
Sign up for a tally.
Okay, there you go.
That was easy. My first ask.
Anybody at the Sim conference gets it for free, right?
Yeah, well, everybody. Free is this universal thing almost.
There you go.
No, I think, I think we're making progress. I honestly think we've made a lot of progress. I mean, I go back 10 years ago and it was a mess then. And it's not as messy as it was then. We have more data. We have, more insight. We have, metadata attached to pod. I'm still positive that we're making progress. Negative, as I usually am.
Good. Sam?
A couple things. I think a lot of the focus that we talked about, deservedly so, has been put places. I think we all need to come together and improve the process of identification of the ads. We did it with Nielsen years ago with logs or whatever the case may be. In a lot of tests we're running, I'm getting different unit loads and everything I'm doing versus what I think I bought. So I think we need to come together with that. And then with that theme, one of the most disappointing things for me the past couple of days was the last session with the list of clients for the JSE. I want a lot more on that screen. We're not going to make the progress we want if everyone is not involved.
Sonia?
I think 3 things. The command and control still sits with the viewer and always will. So make sure you're redefining and honing on what that means as a good steward of that. Second, goes back to reimagine things, because that's how you solve for problems. And anytime big data is mentioned and you have optimization, insert AI.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's what all of them said. Just the connectivity of each individual impactful data asset tool to create that circular unified workflow.
Hey, well, join me in thanking these guys for a great discussion.